I want to give kudos to Stevie, Rachelle, legendary lead singer of the band TUFF, and the founder of Metal Sludge. He put out a story that he found, a very, very bizarre video on the YouTube channel of someone named the Fonz of Kiss or something like that. And what it shows is an interview with a very beautiful reporter, short-haired reporter, with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley of Kiss. And, it sounds like maybe the reporter was a little flirtatious, or maybe she was a little, happy-go-lucky or whatever. At least that's what I saw in a comment there. But the reality of the matter is that Paul puts his arm around her. It looks like it's around her waist, but later he's like rubbing on her sides and whatnot. And he says something to the effect of, "I'll show you where it's going to hurt," or something like that. It's probably a response to something she said, probably something stupid Paul said. But he like puts his hand around her neck, and he's like, just being very, very bizarre. But then where he takes it to a completely different place is where he puts his mouth on this reporter's earlobe. In other words, the reporter's earlobe is in his mouth, and he's like sucking on it, and it's just really, really weird. And she looks over at the camera a couple of times with a face of utter disgust. Now, she never says no, she never says stop, but the face just, I agree with Stevie. I mean, the face is just, the expression that she makes, and she makes a couple of different expressions. It's like, it's disgust. And Paul Stanley, this old man, even at the time, this reporter might have been like, maybe 20 or 25 or something, and he's like being very inappropriate. And the fact is that it's ironic because she is looking to Gene, hoping to have a normal conversation. You would think Gene, seeing what Paul is doing, maybe would fall into temptation or, deprivation or depravity or whatever. Because honestly, what Paul was doing, I think, either Stevie, I think the YouTuber titled the video "Paul asserting his manhood" or something really stupid, by the way. And again, I'm not going to show any clips of the video because I don't know. I mean, I could do it for fair use. I mean, he couldn't stop me from playing a couple of seconds, and he couldn't stop me from maybe what I'll do is the thumbnail, which can be removed at any time. Maybe the thumbnail I will put with a still. But excuse me. No, I'm not sponsored by Rain, but I do love them. But maybe what I'll do is I'll put like a thumbnail so that if he has like a fit, I can replace it, so it won't be part of the actual video. But again, my reason for using anything would be for, fair use, for media purposes, just like Stevie did. But I got to tell you, I mean, we hear all these horror stories from Gene. I mean, he was just recently accused by Rachelle Gordon, which was Ace Frehley's longtime ex-girlfriend. Now he and the current girlfriend that he had for a long time broke up, but I guess it was mutual, so we're not going to be hearing any videos about, Ace getting, pegged or something. But, the thing is that Gene is always the one that's kind of like in the hot seat for this type of behavior, right? And it's Paul. And also Paul, I mean, I don't know, how could Paul, I mean, I don't know, like, at times it looked like he was looking at Gene, like maybe he was trying to, maybe I read wrong when the YouTuber was saying asserting his manhood. Maybe he wasn't asserting his manhood to the reporter, which, if that's the case, would be extremely effed up. Maybe he was trying to reassert his manhood with Gene, because it looked like he was like looking right into Gene's eyes while he was doing what he was doing to this girl. And when I say girl, by this young woman. But I mean, the thing is, it's sick. And Gene, to his credit, was a gentleman when he spoke to her and didn't make any remarks and didn't egg on Paul and didn't really even seem to acknowledge Paul. He was only looking at the reporter. So this is a situation where Gene Simmons comes out looking great and Paul Stanley comes out looking like some perverted old man in Central Park with a big trench coat, greeting passerbys and joggers. I mean, he looks like a complete creep. And it's just ironic because this is not, I mean, we've all seen the interview from the Revenge era. It's only about a minute or two long that they actually show, where, you know, Paul is jabbing it and jabbing and jabbing at Jean because Jean made a joke about there being a pregnant lady in the first row of one of their earliest shows, and Paul didn't like it. And then Paul also didn't like the fact that Jean would brag about, you know, the 5,000 groupies and brag about, you know, and he would say anybody can tell stories. And Jean didn't like it. Jean actually stopped that interview to tell Paul to knock it off because he wasn't going to have it. So it's just, again, it's interesting, especially from a KISS fan perspective. And, you know, the three sides of the coin, guys, just give it 2 days before they're attacking Stevie, because those guys are Paul Stanley fan club presidents. All three of them, Michael Brandvold, the chubby Italian guy, and the other guy that looks a little light in the loafers. All three of those guys, and the blonde, the, you know, kind of ditzy blonde. She's cool and all, but I think that's an act. But the thing is, they're going to attack Stevie because they will attack anybody that attacks Paul. Anybody that attacks Jean and Paul, but more specifically Paul. They just have this thing with Paul. You know what I mean? And so I don't know if they do Paul's laundry, and if they do, probably just his underpants, you know what I mean? And they probably want to make sure that it's dirty, you know, to preserve water, to be ecologically friendly. So they probably sniff his drawers to make sure that they're not dirty. I mean, if they smell like Paul ripped a massive fart, you know what I mean? Or if there's like urine stains all over, they'll probably say, well, this smells dirty. But they may want to, you know, do a second round of sniffing there. And then finally they'll say, okay, well, this is clearly a skid mark, and we've smelled this thing 4 or 5 times each of us. We are going to determine that these leopard bikini briefs need a good wash, and then we'll resume sniffing them after. I mean, they seem like the type. They seem like the type that if Paul like crop dusted them, they would say thank you and ask for more. They seem like the type. I'm just saying, they seem like the type. Now, on the flip side, it'll be interesting. Sorry for all those, you know, illustrations there about, you know, Paul's ripping or cutting the cheese, but you know he's crop dusting on stage, you know? People! Vroom! You know, I'm just saying. But no, really, he just comes out looking like a complete scumbag, and Jean comes out looking really cool and actually like a decent person, which is crazy. And, you know, it's crazy to me that the reporter never filed a lawsuit. Maybe she did. You know, maybe her and Paul had a thing at one point. I don't think so. But maybe they did. Would that change anything? No. That was an interview. And that was a completely unwanted contact, confirmed by multiple grimaces by the lady. I'm surprised she hasn't sued Paul. And now maybe she will. Maybe this was like, you know, just some interview that, some bad memory that she's tried to forget. And now the story is broken by the legendary metal Sludge. I mean, you know, now maybe Blabbermouth will pick it up. Maybe Brave Words will pick it up. You know, that's just how it works. You know what I mean? But I just don't think there's anything cool about that. And if it was an act, then shame on the reporter and shame on Paul. But yeah, I don't think it was an act. I don't think it was an act. But what do you think? Have you seen the video? The Fonzie of Kiss or something like that. Just look it up. Paul Stanley, and maybe put Paul Stanley reporter Earlobe or something like that. I'm sure you're going to find it very easily.